So I'm super excited to have you here today. I love what you've been doing. It's been a little while since we've talked in person, but yeah, thank you for coming on the Asset Mindset podcast. It's great to have you here, and I love your passion. I love your inspiring message. I'm just so stoked on all the things you're doing and just diving in. With this podcast. I'm going to be super excited. So I'm going to start kicking it off now. Welcome to the Asset Mindset Podcast. Magda Khalifa is our special guest today. She is amazing. She's inspiring, powerful, strong woman, veteran from Jersey. She's a Jersey girl. And it's just fantastic to have her on here. I came across her in my journeys a few years ago at a speaking event, and she just right off the bat hit me as an amazing person. So when it came to starting the Asset Mindset podcast, I had to have her on. So welcome, Magna.
Thank you, Dan. So great to be here. I appreciate this so much. You meet certain people in life, you just kind of connect because you're on the same path of growth. And that's how I felt when I met you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to kind of start off a little bit hitting heavy here in the beginning. So what was the single hardest moment in your life when you realized, like, I'm going to break down, this is going to break me, or I need to step up? Like, what was in your mind that made that big shift, that moment, and where you're like, no, I need to take control and take the reins of this?
Yeah, so I guess there were two moments, for different chapters. I guess, you live long enough, you have different chapter parts in life. But the first was witnessing the attacks on September 11th up in the New York City area. So I lived on the Jersey side, and that was just unbelievable. Of course, just unbelievable for anybody that's lived through that day. We all remember what that was like, where we were, what we were doing. Anyway, I eventually, I needed to do something, and there wasn't much I could do, and that realization of being helpless was unforgiving, and so that's when
Mm-hmm.
I decided to join the military and take the fight to the enemy. So I left my career behind, ended up leaving my marriage behind, not intentionally, and not immediately, of course, but it was just such a pivotal moment in life that changed the course and the direction, the azimuth of where I was going with my life. And no regrets, because everything happens for a reason, right? And you're kind of like right place, right time to step up. And I want to protect and defend my country and this Constitution. So I was 30 years old when I joined. So not a spring chicken, but at the same point, it was just seeing that was very pivotal for me. So the decision to do something and go serve my country was so clear. So that would be probably the first time in life, that something major happened in a way that I needed to do something like that. And then fast forward years later, after returning and being broken down and worn down like so many veterans are after, serving a good amount of time in combat and everything and coming home. There were instances. I mean, there was, coming back, I had to make a choice. I had to make a choice whether I was going to push through, figure things out, without the guidance, or whether I was going to tap that easy button and just succumb to anything that would help me, feel better and get through all of what I was dealing with when I got back. So I made that choice. I said, no matter what, I'm going to stay on the straight and narrow and push through. So I made that decision. And when you make a decision, like, subconsciously, we don't even realize that impacts your journey. So I took the long road. I took, maybe about better part of 9 years before I turned my life back around to something positive. But it was intentional because I set that intention, upon coming back. I was not going to turn to drugs, alcohol, prescriptions, medications, anything like that. I was going to figure out what the heck was going on with me. And I just kept faith too. I kept faith. So that was very pivotal. Like I talk about in the book that, the first chapter. So what I was faced with, a choice. And I just leaned to the side of, wait, I want to keep going on. I don't want to um, hit the easy button here. And then the third major swing was, I would say this was back 2019, and I did talk about it in the book. I had gotten to a point where I got my health back in a much better place than it had been, obviously coming back from war and everything. And I surrounded myself, I intentionally put myself in the room with the right people, meaning people who, the growth minded people. And one thing led to another, and the right person saw that I have value to share with the world. And that person highly suggested me to step out over the threshold and share my value with the world, to the world, with the world, because I had been very private and kind of kept everything to myself, like so many people. I'm sure, like so many listeners have done. I think the majority of people, we just don't, share. We don't become vulnerable. But I realized I need to get vulnerable and share my story because that's the only way I would be able to help others. And by helping others, I'd be finding that point of significance in life where what you went through doesn't matter. You realize you went through it for a reason. So, as a result, he didn't tell me go write a book, but as a result, I wrote the book. And that decision to share and realize, like, I would be selfish if I did not share the solutions that I found that worked for me, the TTPs, if you will, that
Yeah.
helped me stay on track and stay focused. So that was very pivotal because 2 months after publishing the book, uh, the brand was born, Triangle Fragrance. So things happen for a reason. You have to trust your gut, your instinct, your intuition, 100%. You have to have faith, but it's just life is still unrolling. There's more chapters ahead. But yeah, there's really three big decision points in life where I could have opted to stay small. I could have opted to look the other way. I could have opted to sit back and let, others go and serve and fight and protect and defend our Constitution. And like that to me wasn't a choice. So
Oh, that's fantastic and great story. And we're so similar in so many ways. And that's why I'm so happy to have you here. Is I had the exact same thing happen with me, 9/11. Like I watched the second plane fly in. Now I was just south of Boston, so not as close as you, but close enough where I was like, man, maybe I should do something and go down there. And then I started thinking, and my story also is joining the military to go help and serve. And I was also older. I turned 28 in basic training. So, but enough about me. Let's get back into positive mental thinking and positive mindset and the asset mindset. So you've had all these things happen now that were challenging, that you could have taken the easy way or the comfort. Most people want to be comfortable or stay comfortable, but you've chased growth and taken the hard road. So for listeners that are maybe stuck or on the fence, can you talk about chasing growth and getting out of your comfort zone and the benefits, what actually happen when you do get out of your comfort zone?
100%. When you decide, when you make that commitment to yourself, okay, first and foremost, that you're going to grow, right? An amazing thing happens. Doors open. Now you're going to hit some bumps on the way for sure. That's part of the growth journey. But how you emerge afterwards is so invaluable because without growth, you're dying. And who wants to live life like that? To me, I'm committed until the Lord pulls me up to heaven. I am committed to keep challenging myself and to keep growing and to do things I never thought I would do and to do things maybe I thought were unimaginable. At this point, unimaginable doesn't exist because once you start doing that, you start building a deep threshold of realizing how much you're capable of. And when you build that internal capabilities, um, resource inside you, it makes you bolder, stronger, more confident. And that is absolutely the most empowering thing a human being can do because we all have the free will to be able to make that determination. Am I going to be, am I going to have a fixed mindset, play a victim, or am I going to take what happened to me, whether, it was unfortunate or it was, whatever the case is, it was just not a good thing. And am I going to let that consume me and control my life, or am I going to move forward and grow from it and become stronger and then take those capabilities and those skills and apply it to whatever else happens in the future? And that's the trajectory I've taken. So it's become addictive to become a better version of yourself, you know, and you never settle that way. And I realize the majority of probably the world is not built that way. But how many more people would embrace that, and how many more people would find, I'm not going to say it's happiness, it's a fulfillment inside of them, to keep going through the toughest circumstances, right? How many people would rather be in that position, right? And to have that ability to, like, not look at what others think you should do, right? Or society thinks you should do, but to do what serves you so that you can serve others. Because that's the ultimate, that's the pinnacle to get to that point where you're actually making an impact. And you're making an impact because you're authentic and you're true. So 100%, those who choose to, dive off the diving board, to shark infested waters, well, you know, without risk, right? You're not going to find that reward. You're not going to grow, and I believe that there are so many instances when I look back in life where, you know, my faith, I believe, angels have had my back along the way, 100%. And that's why I know that even, if on paper things look, perhaps they don't look right, when you have that intestinal strength to keep going, you're able to overcome the odds and keep growing. And that's powerful. And it does become addictive. You're chasing that because you realize, like, why are we put here on earth, right? To like just be a clone. I mean, I know we have AI coming along and it's going to change things, but we're still human beings and we need to grow. So the question is, when do you get that message of growth? Some people have it because the environment they grew up in. Believe a lot of people don't. But that's why it's so important what you're doing, Dan, because it inspires others to realize that they have it within themselves, those assets to be able to grow.
Yeah, no, we're doing it. We're growing.
Mhm.
There's a community out there that I think is realizing this and is sharing it with others to overcome fear. Because I think that's what holds a lot of people back is fear.
Mhm.
They're afraid what other people are going to think. They're afraid they're going to fail. It's all this fear stuff out there, and it's a lot in our mind. Like in special forces, we have De oppressor libere, Latin to free the oppressed or free from oppression. I think people oppress themselves with their own mind and their own thoughts, and they're limiting themselves. And so I've created the asset mindset philosophy and wrote a book about it so that we can help people overcome fear. They can overcome their own oppression in their mind. And I see you doing that in your book, which I'm going to hold up, which everybody you need to check out, American Dream by Magda Khalifa. She is spot on. If you like my book, The Asset Mindset, you're going to love her book too. Because, I mean, the truth is the truth, no matter who says it. And you can get nuggets and knowledge from all different people. And she is somebody that can mentor you mentally. She is amazing. Like I said, when we first met, we were both doing a speaking gig to try and help transitioning veterans. And you know what? We were both new and getting out there, but we said, screw it. We're going to do it and put ourselves out there. And that's what you need to do. And she's got this freedom triangle. And I want you to share the freedom triangle because there's so many similarities with what I say with the asset mindset. So please share with the listeners the freedom triangle and how you came up with it and how it's changed your life and changed other people's lives.
Sure. So when I set out to write the book, I knew I wanted to capture some war history, and because it's important. Not many of us were over there, and not many of us are still around, sadly. And I say that because not just the numbers. that were killed in combat, but also the number of service members who were in Iraq and Afghanistan who, either succumbed to say prescription medication cocktails that the VA was pushing on them for years, or to their own demons in whatever sort of way. They could have been self-medicating. There's so many reasons. And then also to it's important to mention, of course, the cancer, right? Unique cancers that have plagued so many service members who are deployed, even to Africa, certain parts of Africa where they were stationed. Um, a lot of bad things. So that being said, it's important to capture history. So I want to capture history, but I decided I'm going to write the book as a mindset book. If you see the acronym for American Dream, the D stands for discipline, R for resilience, E for endurance, A for adaptability, and M for mentorship. So American Dream, to succeed and win in life. So that's how I set out to write the book. And oftentimes, a lot of authors will say, as you're writing, especially as my first book, it was a memoir as well. It was a cathartic experience. And again, I had just gotten my life to the point, to that pinnacle where I had so much clarity that it literally came to me. I started having epiphanies as you're writing, you're so obsessed with that process, that project. I literally had dreams and epiphanies, and I shared those in the book. And there were five of them. It was powerful. um, it very powerful. So what happened in the process? One of those epiphanies was freedom triangle. And that's the ultimate state of taking control of your life, leaving everything in the past that held you back because either you allowed it to in your mind or it literally did hold you back for a season in your life, leaving that all behind, finding your true self and surging forth. And, like it applies to people who say maybe you're successful in life, with your career or you own a business, why not? But something's missing because something is holding you back. So I discovered that freedom triangle. Now, mind you, I was living in North Jersey at the time, right on the Hudson River, right across the development. If you look at the and behind the photo of me in the book, there's the Hudson Yards that was being built. Okay. And there was 30 Hudson Yards at the very top. That was the tallest building, had an LED triangle. So I'm watching that through my window view as I'm writing this, and it all came to me all at once. And it was very powerful because it was being built. Now, mind you, it was a little bit of a renaissance with all the super tall buildings that were being built in New York City at that time. And I was witnessing it, watching it, and watching the emergence, the growth, and mind you, I'd left New York City area when the New York City area was attacked, when our country was attacked, and there was destruction. To see this coming out at the same time, there were a lot of parallels with my growth journey. That 1,000 foot story, 100-story building that was going up with the outdoor deck that was 1,000 feet, over Manhattan. That was paralleling with my life and what I was doing. So it all came together. And I introduced this concept called Freedom Triangle in the book. Didn't think much of it at the time. I was just so focused on the mechanics of getting the book out, self-publishing, learning the process, and taking that leap because I knew once I hit publish, my story or the portions I shared, because obviously I had to trim it down to make it a palatable a book. That was going to change my life because once it's out there, and you're putting it out there. But I believed so much that I had to share that value because if it helped one person, it was worth it. So that's how Freedom Triangle was born. So it's based on three premises that I believe are important, you must have in your life in order to reach that point of control. So it starts with time freedom and health freedom and then mind freedom. And time freedom, because the thing is, we are in the rat race kind of world. We have been for decades, even before the information age started, it was starting to simmer. We're just so inundated with so much. I mean, look at technology alone. The attention spans of people these days are, just a few seconds, maybe even negative. You don't grab their attention right away. People just don't have the ability to have complete thoughts because of this inundation of we'll call it information. So that being said, if you do not have that time and space to really hone in and find yourself, you're not even going to be able to continue on this journey. You're just going to be confused, going through the motions. So that's a quick summary of time freedom. Health freedom has two parts. Health freedom is based on the concept of removing that from a health standpoint, which is affecting how you think. And I have a chapter where I talk about the gut brain axis. It's um, kind of telling, like, to look back, like that was okay. We were in 2025, early 2025. I wrote that in it was published in October 2019, so over 5 years ago, right? 5.5 years ago. And nobody was talking about the gut brain axis. Like, I didn't discover it. I heard about it. I dug a little bit further. And I also started applying things in my life, superfoods and whatnot, to help improve my health, and overcome some of the health issues I had from being in a combat environment, those toxic exposures and whatnot. So that being said, health freedom is let go of anything that's controlling your mind. And if you look at simple one, everybody will understand: prescription medication use, psychotropic drug use. I think we know now we're deep into, the post 2020 world, and we're realizing the horrible effects of prescription psychotropic drug medication on people's minds, and what can happen to them, and especially our youth today as well. When they start taking these things early on in life, and how that can change the trajectory of their life. So wow. I mean, there's just so much we could unpack there. So health. So the first part of health freedom, the point in the freedom triangle, is removing those things that control you. Could be illegal, prescribed drugs, whatever the case is, right? And then the second part is putting into your body the things that are good for you, that help your brain work optimally. And a big part of that is finding the proper sleep, the deep REM sleep, And I talk about my journey with that, what I was doing, and how I was able to do that. And it was so important because it set me up for everything else that came afterwards. But if you can't do these things, opportunities will come through. You won't even catch them because you're distracted, and you don't have that safe landing zone for these great pivotal moments in life to come down and impact you. Okay. So anyway, the third point is that mind freedom, and that is where you truly have let go. You're not just saying it. You have found a way to let go of your traumas. Life's not fair. We got it. Everybody's got some sort of struggle, right? It's going to happen, unless you live in a bubble. I mean, it's going to happen. Things are going to happen that are going to come and rock your world that you never saw coming. And the whole thing is, if you're able to let go of that, or find a place for that. You may never forget it. That's fine. But you find a place for that in your life so that it's not affecting you on the daily. How many times do we see, and even people in our community, that they just hold on to the past and they don't want to go past that? Now, some people do that because they haven't found a new identity. They don't know what they're going to do instead. And they feel that holding on to those traumas are their lifeline to who they are. And, I'm here to let them know, no, it doesn't have to be the case. Like, you can take that, and you can totally convert it into something brand new, like a whole new chapter. And to a point where your experience almost becomes unrecognizable to you, or it is so insignificant because everything you've done since or currently, is so much greater than what it was that happened to you, as horrible as it may have been, as unfair as it might have been, right? You let that go. So the combination of finding these 3 points in life, when you have those points in life checked off, it opens up the door. And when I published the book again, I was more focused on wow, I'm being very vulnerable and sharing a lot, and I don't know how it's going to be received. However, however, 2 months after I published it, I realized that value right there, that freedom triangle was so important. And I also realized not everybody's going to read a book, not everybody's going to get to the end of the book and really absorb that because I introduced it towards the end. So I thought I need a physical product that people would purchase, something for men, something for women that I could tie back to that freedom triangle, something that's going to represent that freedom triangle. So in my case, I introduced Triangle Fragrance, which is the world's first luxury fragrance line for men and women, inspired by that freedom triangle. And they all come with a collector's card. It's like driving a trailer, when you're looking behind you trying to reach it. There's a little collector's card. Each one's unique, and they all tie back to a point in the freedom triangle. So it's kind of a complex um, answer, but the actions, I'm more of a person of actions and taking action than a person of words. Although, obviously there are words in the book, but it's about what, look how my life has changed, the lives I've been able to impact as a result of starting this brand, a great American brand for this country, intersecting at a time in our country where our country, our beautiful country, is going through a metamorphosis of its own. It's changing, it's emerging stronger. But our country went through some pain when we look back at 2020, right? When we look back at everything that has happened and that happened in the years afterwards. So my trajectory mirrors the trajectory of, modern years in our country. So saying that to say, it's just so powerful that when you get that point of clarity in your life and when you are able to surge forth, you will never feel the pain and the hurt of the past.
No, absolutely. I love it, Magda. And I got to say, when I first looked at your book, I was like, oh, it's going to be just a story about the girl that, signed up after 9/11. But there's so much more to this. I mean, listeners, you got to check it out because it's so deep on so many levels. That's why I asked her to speak about the Freedom Triangle. And she talks about experiences in there that are life changing. And you too can have life changing experience when you change your mindset to something more positive. And she talks about health. She talks about so many different things. You got to check it out yourself. And also the fragrances. Oh my goodness. I mean, that's all I wear. That's all my wife wears. She does have some essential oils sometimes that we use for like health things, but boy, I mean, I'm wearing Victory right now, and it's amazing. Great product, lasts a while, it smells great, it doesn't just fade off, and you don't get that chemically yuck because it's a quality product. But I want to also now get into, you know, you breaking out and dealing with change. People fear change or afraid of change. How can you share with people on having that drive to make a change in their life or to share something that you did, maybe a technique or something that helped you be able to take these leaps of faith?
So I think it's happened so many times in my life now. There's a certain feeling that you can identify it because, again, my mind's not clouded. My mind isn't um, confused and distracted with, as I mentioned, with the health freedom point, with, drugs, prescriptions, anything like that. So you can sense when something happens that, that door opens, that window opens, or what it is that you need to do when something happens and you know what you need to do. You can sense that when you do it repeatedly. Like, I'm not going to say it happens every single day, but if you're the type of person that does embrace change and decides, I'm going to go in and I'm going to conquer, I'm going to dominate, I'm going to, kick ass in my own way to handle this particular situation, right? If you're that type of person, when that opportunity or when that moment comes up again, you're going to recognize it. And then what do? You looked at your past performance. You're like, wait a minute, I got through it. I got through it before. So I know I'm going to be able to get through it again. And that's powerful because the only way you're going to get there is by living life, by falling down, by getting up, by keeping on going. And if you stop any of that, you know, you're stopping your growth. You're stunting your growth as a person, right? And why do that? Why do that? Like you just have to go out there and seek it. Put yourself in environments, put yourself in rooms where maybe your previous self would say, "Are you kidding me? What are you doing here? You don't belong." And that's the room you need to be in, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
agree with that
mhm,
wholeheartedly. And that's one of the
yeah,
concepts I share with the asset mindset is surround yourself with good people in positive environments.
mhm.
That's you need to put yourself out there and it's going to be scary, and fail. Yeah, we're all going to fail. That's part of it. Every great basketball player doesn't make every shot. They fail, they miss, but you know what? You take another shot. You take another shot. Same thing with baseball. You know, what's a batting average? Nobody's batting 1,000. Nobody hits a home run every time they get up or gets a hit every time they get. You're going to strike out, but dust it off. You're going to learn. You learn, oh, hey, he threw this curveball or this pitch, or, you're going to get experience. So the more experience, the more you fail, the better your chances are at succeeding. And I even talk about, you'll love this because you're business minded and all the wonderful things you're doing. But people talk about, oh, you don't want to start a business. 9 out of 10 businesses fail. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. 9 out of 10 fail. So that means I'd only have to try something 10 times in life to have a success. And maybe, wait, just maybe, it might be the third one. What if the 9 out of 10 was number three? So you only had to fail twice. So don't get stuck and limited by others and what they say. Find mentors, find positive people who are going to lift you up and associate with these people. And I see you doing that all the time. Can you share maybe a mentor or somebody that helped you and some of the nuggets of knowledge that they gave you so that you could then become who you are today?
100%. I've been very fortunate to have reached a point in my life, that was back 2019, 2018, I'd say it started, where I started listening to Grant Cardone and I was listening to 10X Rule. And then I went to my first event, where he was speaking live and he was dropping bomb after bomb after bomb. I felt like he was talking to me. I was in, a stadium, Miami Marlins, with like 30,000 people hearing these things live, and I'm like, oh my goodness, that's me. I needed to hear this. I needed that mental kick in the ass, that I was playing too small, that I was hiding behind my excuses, and so I really plugged into his ecosystem, his way of thinking and learning, and that 100% has impacted me to the point that I never, I totally give credit. He would coming out of the military, my limited mindset was, I really didn't look at civilians the same way as those of us who had served. And he was 100% a civilian. But you know what? He got my attention. And that's important because we have to let, you know, those limiting beliefs behind. And then I started realizing that, I needed to constantly keep myself around the right people. And that's where, I was introduced to Peter Vargas. And I mentioned that in the book, how he was the one that, he didn't tell me go write a book, but he genuinely, amazing human being, he genuinely and authentically pulled out of me some of the value I had to share with the world. And then Brandon Dawson, another mentor who's partners with Grant Cardone as well. And he keeps it real, when it comes to business and, what we think, as business owners and what we don't know and what we don't realize because he's played at all levels of the game. So he's able to articulate things in a way that A, it makes sense, and B, it really provides context to your business journey. And one of the things he always talks about is, we know what we know, we know what we don't know, what we're not experts in, but we don't know what we don't know. And that portion of the pie right there, that's the part I'm always seeking out. That's the part I'm focused on learning. And and when you find it, it's so invaluable because if you start going through life with that lens on, like, I want to know, what is it about systems? What is it about how things work that I don't even know exists that I need to know? And I'm not talking about like the technical details that could fall in the what you don't know about it. It's a concept of the context. Okay. The context and the contrast. When you have that, you're able to think much more like a visionary and see the big picture down the line. And again, I was able to do that. And it's so funny just bringing it back to the business that I started. I started creating this made in USA from day one, fought for this country. I'm going to manufacture in this country. So way back in 2020, started doing that. I started absorbing the cost of US manufacturing from the get-go because it is the right thing to do. And it was a no-brainer, no brainer whatsoever. Number two, and because of what I talked about, my health journey, coming back from war and exposures to toxins and everything, I knew that this brand had to be made without parabens, phthalates, sulfates, toxins, dyes, right? So because of that, I've been doing it right from the start. Well, now we have a secretary who is all about, removing these toxins from our consumer goods, our foods, and getting us, hopefully, what I believe, like, to the European standards, because they tend to be a little bit ahead of things than us with that. So it's like, okay, so I had the vision way back in 2020 that when I was going to create, this fragrance line, that it was going to be done here, it would be done, clean luxury. And look at it now. Here we are in 2025, and that's trending. Oh, well, that's cute. I had that vision all along. So I've passed performance again because of taking action. So it's verifiable. And I think people appreciate that too, because now, as again, we're just taking a real world example. You're going to see these other companies now, they're going to manufacture here in the US. Now they're going to remove these toxins. Now they're going to be ingredient transparent. That's cute. Why weren't they doing this in 2020? Just saying.
Yeah.
So my whole point is having the right mentors can help you change your thinking and how you look at things and how you tackle problems. And that's so invaluable because we only have so many years on this planet, in our life form. And why not optimize and maximize those years, So instead of trying to figure everything out on your own, get around the right people. And people are like, well, I can't afford to go to events and listen to them live. Well, I mean, we live in the digital age. Everything is, people are listening to a podcast right now. You can read books. You can get, audio books. If you don't have the time to sit and read, you can actually listen while you're driving. And so there's no excuse. There's no excuse to not surround your mind, with not just positive feel good stuff, but think about maybe you need that. Maybe you do. I'm not going to knock that. Some people need that kind of motivation. Okay. But I'm talking about those that actually want to take action and tackle a problem and overcome something and they don't know how to do that. Surround yourself with people who have done those things, who are willing to share, because not everybody is willing to share. So if you find people that are willing to share, they can speak to you literally, through this amazing podcast, that you have set up. People are going to be learning from the different guests that come on with the backdrop of the asset mindset. And they're going to realize they have no excuse. And by doing that, it's not going to speak to everyone. It's going to attract the right people. And the wrong people, you can't help anyone that's not interested in improving themselves, and I guess some people go through a season where they're for whatever reason, they realize they're not ready, they're not ready to receive messages that they need to hear, that the universe wants to send them, right? Okay, great. But when they are, these resources exist and it's powerful. Like, there's no excuses at this point. I think that I'm excited to see, well, to be a player in the growth trajectory for our world, because obviously the United States leads the way, but over the next few decades, but like the next few years, even right now, here we are in 2025, what our country is going to look like at the end, what our GDP is going to look like at the end of this year, what we're going to see, what we're seeing on the daily basis. It's something that is very exciting to be a part of, not just as someone, on the sidelines watching, but as a contributor who's in the fray, who's building as a business owner, in my case. It's very powerful. It's exciting. And, it keeps you focused on that forward azimuth of growth. And keeps you on that journey. It's so simple once you plug in. And, that's why I love spending time with business owners who appreciate, it's not just hustle and grind, but growth, pivoting, right? We live in a world where conditions are changing and evolving every single day. So you look and see how, in this case, companies are adapting and how they're adjusting and how they're pivoting to stay alive and survive and thrive and, basically to grow from that. So just like we want to stay alive and fight and survive and grow and thrive as individuals, right? And I hope all the veterans out there, who are stuck or just haven't gotten to that point yet, I hope they really take this to heart, just surround yourself with the people who are doing it and the right people who want to share how they're doing it and what they've learned on the way and who want to teach you something along the way. So yeah, 100% mentorship, super invaluable. That was a big, part of my life, and I'm very grateful to those mentors who did pour into, thousands of people. And I was one of those people who heard them. And I was able to change my life in the direction that it was going as well as a result.
Amazing story. And I got to say, there's something when we first met that you said, and you were talking about veterans coming back from World War II
Hmm.
and how they helped change and shape America for the better. They became the business owners, they became the entrepreneurs, they became the people that really helped make America strong. And you talked about that the GWAT veterans coming back, it's now the torch has been passed on to us. And it's now our turn to become the leaders and the people that are business owners and changing the world and shaping our country for the better. And that hit me from the very beginning. And it's so true. Now, you also don't have to be a veteran. Don't think that, even you were just talking about Gary. Gary and his brother Grant. I've been on a phone call with both of them one time. Amazing people, business, mental oriented. And they're great Americans too. So if you're not a veteran, you can still be a part of this movement, this cause of making the world a better place, making America a better place, making your town a better place. You can do this. You got to take ownership and own your power. And don't get stuck with fear or obstacles. And if you could share some things about obstacles and overcoming obstacles, because obviously starting a business and not owning a business and being a veteran and you wrote a book and then all of a sudden now you're getting into this luxury fragrance. How did you overcome those obstacles or those challenges you had that you can share with listeners so that they can overcome whatever their challenges are at the moment?
So I believe a lot of it comes down to your belief in what it is that you're doing. And as I mentioned earlier, I had that vision for what it is that I wanted to create, and the why behind it was to bring people back to the Freedom Triangle in the book. So I knew they would eventually learn more about it and whatnot, and then I could serve people that way. And to me, those are the things that are going to help me, get super VIP into heaven, and honestly. I mean, that's
So it's selfish. You're being selfish.
I am. I just want to help more people so I can secure that seat because at my height, you want to be front row because you can't see over the heads in front of you. So that being said, you have to have that belief. And some people are going to say it's passion. I passion is I believe that's an emotion. It's to me, it's more than an emotion. It's literally, like there is a blueprint to this. And I believe that creating a great American brand has a blueprint. And while 99.9% of the companies would just look at bottom line, and that's why they, essentially, say made their goods in China, because they could get it for a lot cheaper and still have a high markup, well, they made a choice. And it all comes down to choice. And so while I've been struggling as a solopreneur for so long, I could see like all of a sudden now, well, not all of a sudden, 5 years into this, the tide is turning. So my lesson to this point would be you have to have that vision, because if you're just going through motions, you don't really know what you want to do, that's going to become a problem, because you're going to miss opportunities and you're not going to necessarily have a clear answer to the end state, the target, the goal that you're trying to get to when you are faced with challenges. So you have to be very, very clear. You have to have clarity in what it is that you're trying to accomplish. Okay. So I knew I had that. So that part has guided me all these years while other things were trending, let's just say, while it could have been an easier path to take a different road with my approach to building this brand. I stayed true to that vision because I had that belief. So if you have that fundamental belief in place, it makes things so much easier. And a perfect analogy, if you join the service, right, because you, like yourself and like myself, you wanted to go and serve and protect and defend this country. When you're faced with challenges while you're, on the battlefield or just downrange, or even in training, you know what you need to do because you have that belief. And why is it that you left your family or whatever you left behind, to come and do what so many Americans won't do, right? So you default to that. It's the same concept with business or growth or whatever trajectory you're on. So you have to have that belief from the get-go. And I personally believe in how you do one thing is how you do everything. And if you're a person who takes shortcuts at the expense of doing things properly, uh, it's gonna catch up with you as well. So, and that's why it's so important to me to do things right. You don't get everything right all the time, but you learn from it, and that's the whole point. I mean, that's the whole point. You're constantly improving and growing. So you have to determine, again, you have to have that vision, and you have to determine your values. And those are things that I know I can't say I've been tested in the sense like I ever thought I was ever going to deviate from it, but there have been opportunities that have presented themselves. And I thought, well, no, I'm going to stick to my guns literally, because this is the vision I have. And these are the values that I am not going to go back on. And even though it's going to be more challenging or more expensive to produce or whatever the case is, right? I'm still going to stick to my guns and do it. And when you do that, you build that intrinsic value and belief in what it is that you're producing, or that you're doing. You just have to believe in it. Now, okay, I will take one step back and say, okay, for those that, maybe they realize along the way that what they're pursuing isn't exactly what they want, that's fine. You go back and you pivot, and you take what you've learned from those experiences and you apply it to your new trajectory in life. You shoot a new azimuth, right? Like you get off course. Okay. There's that body of water that you didn't see coming, and you need to figure out how to circumnavigate it. That's fine. You could do that. Shoot a new azimuth and go forth.
Love it. Love it. And if you want to know more about Magna, Triangle Fragrance, anything she's doing, hit pause, go into our description, and you can get a link for everything she's doing. You can link and get some of your own Triangle Fragrance scents. I'm a fan of Victory and Freedom. Peace is good too, but I'm a big fan of Victory. And also, please like, subscribe, and follow the Asset Mindset. You can find our podcast on YouTube, Spotify. you can go to theassetmindset.com. Give us a like, and please share with anyone that you think needs to hear this episode. Now, Magna, before we go, I want to give you a chance to now really drive it home. In about 30 seconds to a minute, I want you to give the audience a good nugget, a takeaway, something that's empowering for them that they can apply in their life.
Go back to that old Metallica song, Jump in the Fire. It's so true that I mean, there is so much out there, and once you learn, to step away from your bubble, that captain world where, whether it's social media or looking at what your tribe's doing, just break away, and also get past that fear, find something that scares you and go do it, as long as it's legal, safe, moral, and ethical, go for it, because you're going to become a better person for it. And surround yourself, seek out growth-minded people. Even if it's, go to go find people who are doing things like a beast, say even in the physical world, rock yourself physically, right? Just get out of your bubble for a little bit, right? Start, get that blood flowing, because I'm telling you, like, there is so much out there. We only have so much time on this planet, and I want, I'm gonna be 52 this year, my next 52 years to be very purposefully driven, and to make up for the time that I did lose, when I was playing small, feeling sorry for myself, and, just being a little recluse, as my, favorite mentor, Grant Cardone, says, don't be a little bitch.
Absolutely. So, all you listeners out there, don't be a bitch. Own your power.
That's right.
Get the asset mindset. Check out American Dream. It's more than just a story of a girl from Jersey that went downrange. It's so much more. You won't be disappointed. Again, give us a like, give us a follow, share this with someone who needs to hear it. God bless. Own your power. See you next time.